Well, as you can see, the neighbor is throwing out a big ass glass door. And it's got a door frame or a door jamb already attached. It's pre-framed. It looks like it's just slightly too big, so I think I'll have to do some carpentry to make it fit, but it's in super good shape and just needs to be washed and painted. And this could be our new front door. Alright, as you can see here, I've got the stairs all completely gutted out. The last one gave me a little bit of trouble, so I ended up having to drill it out. And I'll probably go and grind those tops off later. I noticed a little bit of a gap here that I'm going to try to address. And I pulled all this framing. I'm pulling that all out from here. This is the big hinge where the door used to live. And that's the door that I pulled off also. As you can see, just went through bit by bit, removed every screw. Right here it's still anchored in where the side view mirror is here, and then one more big bolt on the bottom. I may end up even having to put this big piece back in. We'll see, but I really wanted to just gut this out completely so I can really get an accurate measurement of what my door frame's gonna require. So as you can see, I pulled the door out of the old door frame over there where it was pre-hung, and I took these hinges and I flipped them around so they used to be inverted and facing that way. So the only downside to that is now the hinge is on the outside, which is just a little less secure. So if someone was very creative, they could like tap and pull the pins out and take the door off. So what I'll probably do is drop like a little, just like a quick weld on each one of these points just to make it so you can't get it out easily. Or maybe I'll stick JB weld or something on there, but I want to make sure that it spins freely, so I don't want to weld it so much that it doesn't move. Just enough to make it a deterrent for people to remove it. But yeah, that's the whole door. Let's see if we can get a wide shot here. It's just exactly the right size to fit in the door without the frame around it. Especially now that I've removed the flooring. But I want to make sure that it's going to clear the top there, so I may need to trim with the grinder. And then I got to figure out some way of finishing that outer edge. Maybe I'll do it with wood, or maybe another little rain gutter or something. We'll figure that out. All right, as you can see here, I've cleaned, brushed, and also ran the grinder over some of the surface rust just to check to make sure it doesn't go all the way through, and just give it a little wash. Now we're gonna wait for it to dry, and we're gonna paint the steps with Rust-Oleum Rusty Metal Primer. There's a little handle in here to make it easy to paint. We're gonna coat all that down, make sure it's nice and rust proof before we get into mounting the door. I got the door over here sitting on the table, and just trying to figure out how much to trim off of the door in order to create the proper seal. And hinges here, we're probably gonna weld them in because I don't think the bolts that would attach to metal here, sorry, the sun's right there. So this is the material that we're needing to attach them into, and I don't think there's going to be enough grab. So I mean, I might throw some flathead metal to, I don't know, yeah, flathead metal screws in there, and then see if the door will still close nicely. But most likely I'll just tack weld it in a bunch of spots. What's up, everybody? So I'm just just finishing up the stairwell. Needed to do some welding on it. Here you can see where the paint is drying. I dropped in some screws. I'll show you what kind, and then I put in these really ugly welds. I know they're terrible. And that's just to help hold that in place because it was popping out when I disconnected it from the original door frame. This piece of sheet metal was coming out. These are the type of metal screws that I used kind of as clamps. So that pulled the metal towards the this tube steel here. It pulled it in, and then once it was pulled tight, I just dropped a bunch of little tiny welds all over, waited for it to cool, did some more, and then I just ground everything down, including the screws themselves, so that when I put the door in here, it's nice and flush. And then I hit it with some paint. Same paint as always, rusty primer. So the next step is to cut that door slightly smaller across from the top so that it can fit in this framed area here. All right, so I'm working on the salvage door. This is the door that we salvaged for free, and we're hoping this is going to be our front door. I just set up a little jig here, and I cut off about an inch or so from the top of the door. So as you can see, I cut off that much of the door. And what that's going to allow me to do is it's going to allow me to have enough space so that when I eventually, this is my spacer, when I eventually finish the steps in wood, that the door will be able to cover over that. Otherwise it would be too, because right now the door is so tight that it can barely even fit in the space. So we're making adjustments. The next adjustment that we're going to make is we're going to go in here and we're going to pull these hinges out right here, and we're going to router the shape deeper, probably about as deep as that is sideways. So about that deep. I think my bit is about a ½ inch or so. So that should be pretty good. And then that way this is going to live kind of inside of the door more, and that's going to leave me room to mount. As far as mounting is concerned, I'm going to mount it to this piece of metal, this tube steel, and what I'm going to do is probably pre-drill some holes, and I'm going to weld it in place. Probably going to weld it. Do a bunch of quick tack welds. Try to get it on there real nice, and I'm going to use this as a spacer. So we'll see what happens. Wish me luck. As you can see, we've gone ahead and sanded here, and I've put in some wood glue to fill cracks. Down here I used a trick that my friend taught me where you mix sawdust remnants with wood glue and it makes like a little putty. Obviously I'm going to sand that down once it's hard so you won't see it, and that'll fill in any of those gaps that were created. I sanded it over here too. I'm contemplating whether or not I want to sand the surface, because if I sand the surface that's facing inward, then I can stain it like the same wood color as the rest of the bus interior, so that might be kind of fun. But the only issue with that is, how do I sand this little internal lip, and how do I stain that with that? So it's a bit of a project. I'm gonna think of that over and see what I want to do. It may be possible to just, well, I guess anything's possible. I can drive to the store.